Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the August 14th, 2025 edition of the Transportation Mobility Advisory Commission, affectionately known as TransMAC. And we got a round of applause already. Thank you, sir. Your check's in the mail. So like I said, we are the Transportation Mobility Advisory Commission, TransMAC. We are a citizen-led advisory group that was created by the voters of Orange County in November 2024 to perform three primary duties. One is to make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners on proposed transportation expenditures. Number two is to audit past expenditures for efficiency and effectiveness. And number three is to consider future mobility innovations that we could bring to Orange County to improve our transportation system. So I want to thank all my members of the commission. I missed you guys last month. We took the month of July off. I hope everyone took some nice time off, maybe went on vacation, got out of the heat. But now we're right back in it, and I'm good to see you guys here this evening, and also to members of the Orange County staff and members of the public who have joined us here in the room and at home on Orange TV, where I've been told we're breaking records. So we're doing something there, right there, guys. Okay, so this evening, a couple things, primary things on the agenda tonight. We're going to hear an update from Public Works. As I mentioned earlier, one of our primary duties is to make recommendations on proposed transportation expenditures. Now that that budget has been formally proposed and presented to the Board of County Commissioners, there were some changes made that we will hear about tonight from when we made our recommendations back in March. And then we will also be hearing a presentation from Bike Walk Central Florida about all the great work they do in our communities to educate our kids about proper bike safety, but also to support safer roads and safer streets in our community. So very much looking forward to hearing from Bike Walk Central Florida. But before we get started on that, I have now called the meeting to order. It is official. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, stirring rendition. Okay, first up on the agenda is our public comment period. Do we have any public comments requests in the record? Mr. Scardo, if you could please approach the podium. State your name, address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes. And if anyone else in the audience is interested in submitting a public comment, we ask you to come up, get a form from the clerk here and fill it out. Like he's holding them up, very helpful. And then you'll have your 3 minutes. So, Mr. Scardo, are you ready?
I guess so.
It says 30 seconds. Can you do it in 30 seconds?
It's done. I apologize for the presentation because I put it together in about 15 minutes. 30 seconds, really. 331 Roswell Avenue, Orlando, Eugene Staccato, one and only. This is about, hey, let's do the sunrail. The sunrail can be done. We got it actually there now. You will notice those circled areas, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I am going to explain what that means. The sunrail in number 1 is north-south currently, but there's actually some connections right there in that circle going towards the airport. Let's see if I can get this page. Okay, this is the actual station sunrail just north of Sand Lake. Going south now, this is the area 1, which is the intersection of where the tracks cross and go into the airport. This is a view of it crossing one of the roads. It has, as you notice, it's already crossed and everything. It has safety stuff there. The track does exist today, and there's the highway off to the left, which goes towards the airport. So we're heading towards the east right now. The next one is, hey, there's a double track there, so we can pull off to the side if there's more than one train coming through. So it's already there. Gosh, amazing stuff. And then, we have the Boggy Creek crossing. Of course, there's a crossing guard there too with the little bars and stuff. So hey, and that's where the coal train comes through too. So hey, it's amazing stuff. We have it. I don't know why we don't have a sunrail going yet. Oh, and there's the Brightrail station, which the track goes right by, and the track to the south actually is the coal train that actually goes all the way out towards Avalon. That's a different conversation. Now, to the right, you'll notice it going past that structure, and then it's going to go up towards the nice, and there's the actual station that exists today. And you'll notice there's 2 tracks on the right-hand side. Let me see if I can make this don't want to burn anyone's eyes out. There's the tracks existing today for Brightline for their maintenance and stuff, and there's actually another bridge right here that's actually not occupied, and that's Brightline future right there. So my point is why don't we, this is the lowest apple we physically can have. Why are we not doing it? Why are we waiting for the whole Sunshine Corridor to be planned out and done in 10 years? There's a good chance I physically might be part of the geological record at that point. So, you know, I'd like to get this done before I end the days. It's already there. There's some minor touch-up. There is no condition where Brightline is going to do high speed, which is not a high-speed train. It cannot go above a speed limit on the actual airport, so it's going to be limited on what it can do. So the track is existing today for coal trains, which are much heavier than transportation trains. So I think we should really explore this. We should say, hey, is this a possibility? Let's do it. And you're going to get buy-in from the people if we get the connectivity to the airport. You're going to get the buy-in. That's what we have to go for. That was the purpose of creating this board, to try to get buy-in to the community and show that we can actually do something as a community. This exists today. Let's do it. Boy, that's good timing.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Thank you, Mr. Staccardo. Our next public speaker, please.
Hello, committee members. My name is Mike Bustillos. I'm at 101 Lake Ave, 32801, right here downtown. I won't take a lot of your time. I appreciate all of your efforts here. I just wanted to touch on one ongoing topic and make my opinions known for the record, for the committee. There was a letter that came from the state government a few weeks back asking for the county to identify spending that they saw as wasteful for the state's DOGE efforts, and they wanted to eliminate funding for bike and pedestrian infrastructure, among other things, but I just wanted to call attention to those specifically and put that on your radar. Just make the group aware that it is the intention of the state to coerce the counties into spending less on alternative modes of transportation. And if this panel has any say over the matter, if that does come to pass, I would love to ask that this committee consider increasing funding to try and keep those numbers up or even exceed, because at the end of the day, we need more bike and pedestrian infrastructure. We need more buses and trains, and we don't need more highways exclusively. We have a tremendous problem with pedestrian deaths. We have terrible traffic, and none of those things are going to get better by adding additional lanes. We know this through the studies of induced demand around the world, but what we can do to reduce traffic and to increase pedestrian safety, to get to that Vision Zero, is to increase transit, bike, pedestrian safety, these kinds of things. Just wanted you to know that your constituents, fellow community members, your neighbors, find this important. I would like for you to keep investing in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bustillos. Next public speaker, please.
Good evening, folks. My name is Amber Homburger. I'm at 620 Kittredge Drive in 32805. I have really been enjoying getting to participate in these meetings over the past couple of months, and just really want to thank you all for taking the time, taking the charge, and being willing to kind of represent the people. And I know I wasn't able to attend the visioning session that happened earlier today, so I just wanted to offer a suggestion for you all to think about more in terms of activities of TransMAC and where I think you all could have a really pivotal role in our community. In discussing the amazing work that you all have been doing so far, I've had a lot of friends, share that there is interest, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like it, in more things like community workshops, community education sessions. And what I think would be really amazing is for TransMAC to be kind of this central glue that ties together existing entities, whether that is Bike Walk or the Bike Coalition, Sunrail, in the way that you've been bringing these entities to your meetings to not only educate you, but also hopefully the public. I find so often that even though a lot of us in these different groups are working on the same goal and we all want the same thing, which may be increased ridership and increased pedestrian safety and expanded transit, all these things, there's this oversaturation of some of these things that also aren't very well communicated or marketed to the public. So you have this frustration of folks who don't know that these things are happening, or folks who hear about it so often. So I think it would be really awesome for TransMAC to tie together these different groups, be that kind of central figure to bring these groups together and offer this education to the public, not only at these meetings, but whether that's forums in partnership with Public Works, but for you all to kind of be that central guiding figure, bringing together this almost coalition of transit providing groups. And I think that would really drum up a lot of interest in not only riding transit, but voting for these initiatives as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for joining us this evening, and happy birthday. Don't ask me how I knew that. Next public speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Pedro Rodriguez, and I'm glad to be back here for the transportation meeting. And one thing I wanted to discuss is mainly with regards to Sunrail and the airport connection. As Mr. Staccato has mentioned, there already is rail there, and there's already a platform for Sunrail in order to be able to access the airport. However, I do suggest that if you want to say have a trial of what's the potential ridership for passengers going to the airport, you can look at what other commuter rails have done, such as Metra. Metra provides on some lines limited service for weekends or even weekday hours in order to test out the projections for ridership. So given that the infrastructure already exists, why not do sometimes a limited service for Sunrail to the airport? It shouldn't be that much more expensive with the existing fleet. So that's what I have to say, and that's all.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Any other members of the public who have not yet filled out a speaker card that would like to address the commission? Okay, I want to thank everyone. Thank the public speakers we had tonight for joining us and offering your thoughts to the commission. We absolutely take them under consideration. Okay. So before we proceed to our presentation for the evening, we have to take care of our consent agenda, which is the approval and execution of our minutes from the June 12th, 2025 meeting. Before I ask for a motion, did anyone see any edits that need to be made to those minutes before we approve them? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Move to approve.
And a second?
Second.
It's been a month since we did this, but I think we
I
can
have
get
to
this.
abstain. I wasn't here. So.
You could. I think you can still do that. You can still second the motion.
Okay.
We got it.
Yeah,
We'll
maybe
debate.
I
We'll debate
shouldn't.
Robert's rules at another time. We got a motion to approve by Member Hoyers and a second by Member Ferguson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Motion carries. Okay. So let's start with our main events of the evening. We're going to hear a presentation from Public Works regarding the update to the TransMAC Supplemental Report on recommendations for fiscal year 2025-26 on the proposed transportation capital expenditures and those variances, those differences in the budget that we reviewed earlier this year. Ms. Torres is going to present on behalf of Public Works. She is our new liaison from Public Works to this Transportation Mobility Advisory Commission. She drew the short straw, so she has to deal with us now. But we're so happy to have her, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Chair Grimmer. Thank you, Commission members. Good evening. So today's presentation is just projects that you've already seen before. This is just an update on the changes from the budget from March when you originally saw this presentation to what was submitted in July to the BCC. So this is just a snapshot of the county-wide projects. The blue column to the right are the changes. We're only going to be reviewing those projects that changed. Those are the monetary changes on that column. For intersection widening, there was a decrease of about $1.6 million. This was funding that was reallocated to the resurfacing program, partly due to feedback from TransMAC. Public Works will focus on using the remaining funds to implement intersection safety improvements as part of a broader initiative to enhance safety for all road users. The next was an increase of $950,000 for our Vision Zero action plan. So these additional capital improvement funds were critical to advancing the county's Vision Zero goals of improving safety. This also will enable us to meet the grant requirements for a Safe Streets for All grant that we have applied for. We've applied for the maximum of $25 million for implementation of the projects that were outlined in the Vision Zero Action Plan. There is a grant match through the USDOT. That match is $6.25 million. There was also an increase to the sidewalk program of about $92,000. An additional $92,000 was added from proportionate share funds that became available in the area. Just as a reminder, in this last fiscal year, Public Works has built 12.5 miles of sidewalk. So we're back to the resurfacing program. This was an increase of over $2.8 million. So the resurfacing program, as you already know, is part of Orange County's ongoing maintenance program aimed at extending the lifespan of our roadways, improving safety, and enhancing driving conditions. The increase in funding was reallocated from the intersection widening program. Now, we also are internally, we are meeting together as a group, the different divisions, to prioritize the resurfacing list. So our list goes out for about 3 years, and we are prioritizing the high injury network corridors first. As part of that, we are looking at, when we go into resurface, when possible, reducing lane widths to 11 feet. There have been countless studies around the country that show just that little bit of decrease in lane width does reduce speed. And as you probably already know, speed and distracted driving are the top reasons. They are neck and neck every year for the causes for crashes and fatalities on our roadways. We are also looking at curb radii reduction. Some of these curbs are very wide, basically for truck traffic, to make it easier for trucks to maneuver. The problem is it also makes it so passenger vehicles can turn a lot faster. So with a little bit of pavement marking, we can kind of delineate that a little bit better and tighten up that radii so that people, when they're turning, they can go a little bit slower and hopefully also see someone who might be in the pedestrian crosswalk. We're also looking at the possibility of even just adding speed pavement markings. The posted speed limit as pavement markings on the roadways. Sometimes as you drive through Orange County, you may forget what the speed limit is, especially if you're visiting. So if we have those pavement markings of the posted speed, it'd be very helpful to keep people adherent to that speed. There was also a $1.18 million increase for our roadway lighting project. This funding was reallocated from future construction budget forecasts. So Public Works has their 5-year construction plan. As part of this, we forecast each year what our needs are going to be. Some years we need more funding, other years we need less. So this $1.8 million was always in this budget. It was just reallocated to this fiscal year. For the NeoCATS project, the Northeast Orange County Area-Wide Transportation Study, funds for the interim improvements suggested by the study were reallocated to help cover the Chuliota Road improvements. Staff is still looking into possible additional short-term safety improvements that can be completed in this area while additional funding is identified. Now we'll talk about the major project updates. As you can see, the blue column all the way to your right, almost every project was affected. So for our Vineland Avenue project, there was an increase of over $200,000. This increase is due to additional costs related to design. The funds that were allocated for this were proportionate share funds that were available in the area. For our Richard Crotty project, there was a decrease of $594,000. Now these funds were reallocated based on actual costs identified for this fiscal year. As I discussed previously, this money was always in this project budget. We just reallocated that because we didn't need that additional $594,000 this specific fiscal year. I wanted to bring your attention to the cross-section that was presented to you. So based on TransMAC comments, the segment of Richard Crotty from 436 to Forsyth will be updated to provide 6-foot wide bike lanes, and we're decreasing the lane widths to 11 feet. For our Sand Lake Road project, there was an increase of about $3 million. This additional funding was for design and construction and was required due to unforeseen utility conflicts. The funds are reallocated from transportation impact fees within this area. For our Orange Avenue project, there was about a $1.1 million increase. This was for additional right-of-way needs. Again, there was a reallocation of funds that already existed for this project from future years. This is an example of what our engineering team went through based on TransMAC's comments about the 7-foot wide buffered bike lane, about the concerns that there were no type of vertical protections of any kind. So we went through the process, our engineering team went through the process and looked at the different options that we could have installed. As you can see, except for the very first one, they're very expensive to install. So as a first step, we're not saying that we won't eventually put these items in, but as a first step, we're going to initiate a study to see if we can instead reduce the posted speed limit. Again, speed is a number one factor, neck and neck with distracted driving, as far as crashes and crashes and fatalities go on our roadways. So if we can reduce that speed, that will even increase more the safety of this 7-foot wide buffered bike lane. Taft Vineland Road, there was an increase of about $2.5 million. This additional funding was needed for right-of-way. Funds were reallocated from proportionate share funds in this area. For our Holden Avenue project, all the funds that were available for this fiscal year were instead reallocated for the Reams Road project. For our Kennedy Boulevard project, there was a decrease of $838,000. Now, again, this reallocation was based on the actual costs identified this fiscal year. These funds have always existed in the project, and they were just reallocated to future years of the budget. I wanted to bring your attention to this. So for segment 1, based on TransMAC comments, the segment will be updated to have 11-foot wide travel lanes and 6-foot wide bike lanes. Segment 2, our engineering team is working with the community to make it a complete street. So segment 1 is from Forest City Road to Kingston Court, and segment 2 is from Kingston Court to Wymore Road. For All American Boulevard, there was a decrease of $1.95 million. So these funds are reallocated for fiscal year 27-28 for anticipated construction costs. Again, this is another project where the funding has always been available, but funds are moved around as we are able to focus more and have a better idea of what our needs will be for these projects in each fiscal year. Again, for All American, based on TransMAC comments, this cross-section will have 11-foot wide travel lanes and 6-foot wide bike lanes. For Chuliota Road, there was a decrease in a little bit over $1 million in funding. Again, it was a reallocation of these funds based on actual costs identified for this fiscal year. These funds that remain are for our early right-of-way acquisition and drainage needs. For McCullough, there was a decrease of $675,000. Again, another reallocation of funding for the actual costs identified for this fiscal year. For Ekanlakahatchee Trail, there was an increase to $5.8 million. This increase was due to contractual obligations and unforeseen drainage issues under State Road 417. The funds are reallocated from existing transportation impact fee revenue in this area. Texas Avenue, there was a decrease in over $14 million for this particular project. The funds were redistributed to the Reams Road project. Public Works is currently looking into alternative safety improvements that can be quickly installed. The remaining funds are for any right-of-way obligations that are still in process.
Sorry.
Yes.
On that one, how?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So a $14 million decrease is significant. What does that represent? Does that mean like there was something that was planned that turns out it can't be built? So,
well, quite honestly, what happened was that around that area, around Texas Avenue, that area is pretty much built out. We have a lot of pedestrians. This would have been just another capacity project. So instead of making it just a capacity project and adding an additional lane that may or may not be required, we are instead taking a step back and looking at possible safety upgrades that we can do instead to serve the people of that community.
Thank you.
And also, you said in the short term, those funds are being reallocated to
Reams,
the
yes.
Reams Road construction. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
For our Woodbury Road project, which is in design, was a $3.6 million decrease. These funds were also redistributed for the Reams Road project, the air gas tax funds. There's no funding currently allocated past design for this project. Innovation Way, there was a decrease in about $3.1 million. These funds were redistributed from future years based on the overall budget for Innovation Way. So again, these funds were always available. We just are pushing it back into future years based on need. For our Lake Underhill project, these funds are redistributed from future year project budgets based on some scheduling changes. For Lake Underhill, based on TransMAC comments, staff is evaluating opportunities to provide more room for the bike lane. For the Pine Hills Pedestrian Safety Project, there was an increase in over $2.1 million. This was a reallocation of funds that was based on actual costs identified for this fiscal year. Again, another project where this funding was already available, we just reallocated it sooner within the project schedule.
And definitely applause to Public Works for that project. I drive that corridor fairly often, and to see the way that it is transforming, to me, that communicates a clear prioritization of citizen safety and citizen lives while maintaining that cars can flow freely. So thank you.
For our Reams Road project, as we've been discussing, a lot of funding has been reallocated to this, so there's an increase in over $26 million for this project. These funds were transportation impact fee and invest funds. So this is funded for construction through 2029. For Fiquette Road, there was an increase of over $1 million. Again, this is a reallocation from future year budgets that we were able to reallocate for this fiscal year. And for Tiny Road, there was a decrease of all the proposed budget, $431,000. County staff is evaluating short-term safety upgrades when funding becomes available for Tiny Road. And that's all I have. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Torres. Before we get to the additional questions from the commission, I mentioned that Ms. Torres is her first public meeting here with us at TransMAC, but I neglected to give her the opportunity to maybe introduce herself to members of the public who might want to know, where she came from and what she was going to do for us on behalf of TransMAC. So I want to give her that chance.
Thank you, Chair Grimmer. So my name is Lauren Torres. I am the liaison for the TransMAC. I work directly for Public Works. My experience has been, I was at Orange County Public Works for about 5 years in traffic engineering. I did all the safety projects, so projects like Rio Grande, raised crosswalks at school crossings. Those are the kinds of projects that me and my team worked on while I was here. After that, I went to the National Safety Council, where I was in their roadway group. I was their subject matter expert for everything safety as far as roadway is concerned. As part of that, currently, now in this position, I am still a part of a lot of the national organizations, specifically Transportation Research Board. I hold a panel. I'm on a panel for traffic control devices, and I stay current on a lot of the national things that are happening, specifically to help the TransMAC committee know what's going on around the country.
Thank you so much, and we're very happy to have you with us. So looking forward to working.
You.
Okay. Additional questions from members of the commission?
I just wanted to say thank you for joining TransMAC, but also I
Thank
just
you.
had one question. The resurfacing costs, was the additional cost due to increased construction cost or like additional mileage?
We're trying to get as many miles as we can get done, so we're trying to be a little bit more aggressive, so that's why we needed that funding. And I think we had a shortfall before. Like I said, we have a budget that goes out for about 3 years, so we're trying to be as aggressive as possible, especially trying to focus on those high-energy network corridors.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ron.
And the question, if you can slide back to number 4, I printed out the information you guys sent, and I thought the number you presented was different. That's just a question. It's specifically related to sidewalks, line 2841.
The sidewalk program, the increase in over $92,000, is that one?
Okay, yes, well, because the report I printed out showed more than that, but okay. That was just clarification. Thank you.
Yeah, but that wasn't what was provided, so.
I think it was in the original report.
Oh, okay, so that's quite possible. So it could be quite possible that if, in the original presentation, we broke it out between the sidewalk program and the accelerated transportation safety program. So this number that you see is a combination of both.
Thank you.
Okay. Additional questions? I have a couple. Following up on Patrick's question about the resurfacing program, you mentioned that you're looking to prioritize the higher injury network, which is great for our Vision Zero program, and also looking to reduce lane widths to 11 feet and looking at reduction of the curb radii. Is that something that, when Orange County is doing its resurfacing program, it consistently considers improvements to be made while we're doing that? Is that something that we're trying to take a new approach on and thinking about ways we can work on?
I would say 50-50 on
Okay.
that one. When we have had the opportunity to, for instance, a good example would be Curry Ford Road a few years ago. We went ahead and added a bike lane to the Orange County section, and we reduced the lane widths to 11 feet. So we're just taking a fresh new look, especially because of our Vision Zero initiative, to take this opportunity to really look at our high injury network and see what improvements we can make, especially because we've just asked the US DOT for $25 million. So if there are some improvements that we can make in the meantime, maybe some of that additional funding can be used in other areas.
Okay, great. About the NeoCats money that was, I think, was like $500,000 that was reduced all the way to zero. Do you know what that money was going to be used for? That is known. Do we have specifics on that at all?
I don't. There were some interim improvements, but I can provide a list to the commission and provide you a list of what those interim improvements were.
Okay, great. I also want to say thank you to the Public Works team, because it seems obvious from this presentation that you guys are giving more thought to the bike lanes specifically. So as a bike enthusiast, I really appreciate that. Question about Richard Karate, All-American, and Kennedy. You mentioned considering a widening of the bike lanes, which is great. It's just a step in the right direction. Any sort of additional protection being contemplated there, or just the widening of the lane?
The problem is that especially with that slide that I showed the different types of options, all of those take up space. So whatever we do is going to reduce whatever that 6 foot, that's the 6 feet for the bike lane. Other options that I think we could be considering too is like what we're doing for Orange Avenue. Maybe, a lowering of speed can help that as well. So before we move into that, because if you take, half a foot, off of that, you're down to 5.5 feet, depending on the type of device that you use. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't mean we won't. I'm not saying that we won't consider that, but right now I think that's what we're looking at first, to see if there's other methods that we can use that are maybe not physical to kind of keep the folks in the bike lane a little bit safer.
Okay, and on that Orange Avenue project, the one you showed the multiple options for and the cost, was that for the entire corridor, those final costs that you gave, would cost that number?
Yes, for the Orange Avenue project, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that was to do the entire corridor. And obviously, I noticed the deflector posts, the plastic ones were, pretty cheap. Mm-hmm. I think it's $24,000.
Yes, yeah.
Not a significant investment. But from your perspective, I know your background is specifically in safety projects and also bike safety. Do you have an opinion on how useful those plastic deflector posts are? Are they worth, because $24,000 isn't a lot of money. Is it worth a $24,000 investment? Do we get significant impacts from those versus other protection modalities?
Honestly, I think they're good as used in combination. I think what we're looking at first with the speed reduction is probably the best thing we can do, right? Because you're traveling a lot slower. That's probably number one. That can definitely be as part of a number two. Again, the problem is that sometimes those delineator posts are used on high-speed facilities, and it's just a constant maintenance issue. People just drive right over them. From our perspective, we would probably want something that's called a quick curb, kind of like a curb, and then put the delineated posts on top. From a maintenance perspective, it's a lot less maintenance. From a protection perspective, you're also adding a lot more protection. That was one of the choices that we showed. Let me see if I can go back a little bit. Okay, so even from I think the concrete traffic separator was $1.1 million, and then an additional $24,000 to put the delineated posts on. So whatever we look at will be expensive to install. But again, if it's something that needs to be installed, we will definitely take a look at it. But also, we are also reducing the width of that 7-foot wide bike lane while doing that. So,
Great, thank you. Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so torn here, right? Because on one hand, pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, it's paramount. But then I look at this and I'm like, we're going to be out here buying more plastic. And that's like, it's just, this is certainly not the ideal circumstance to like take a stand on buying more plastic and say, hey, let's not, right? Because there's not a lot of other alternatives. But this is a situation also where I look and I say, well, as opposed to solving this with a hard solution, why don't we have a soft solution? We could spend $24,000 on plastic posts, or we could spend $24,000 on hiring a community safety team that's out there creating the safety instead of hoping that it will take place after we build some structures. And I think perhaps what we're getting at here is we're wanting Public Works to be able to solve the issue with a kind of set it and forget it solution, which is what most infrastructure is. You set it and walk away and then it functions. But the issue, the problem, is the distracted driver, the person that's getting in the car and making a series of decisions that will not be affected by any kind of construction. So I just wonder, like, if this is the point that we're coming to of like, are we going to spend $24,000 on some plastic or $1 million on some plastic? That would be a great point to hit pause and say, well, what happens if we spend $20,000 on people, hiring people in the community to make this more safe? And then that money winds up being spent in the community, right? Like the economic returns are far more substantial as opposed to being detractive. And I don't want it to come across as like, hey, if we need to focus our plastic cutback here in transportation, but this does just feel like the perfect opportunity to really take a step back.
Yeah, and I'll say to that, just my own personal opinion, so you made kind of a distinction between infrastructure versus like a public safety team. And why I prefer things like infrastructure is because it is set it and forget it. You provide the protection, and other than maintaining it, you never have to do it again. If it's an education program, which I think can be done in conjunction with infrastructure improvements, is that it's something you're constantly doing over and over and over again, having to try to educate drivers who, let's be honest, they know everyone knows you're not supposed to look at your phone while you're driving, but people do. Like that's not an education issue. People know that. So I think education can serve an important function in both educating drivers, also educating people who are using bikes, using scooters to protect themselves as well. I think it's an essential element of any road safety program. But just from my own personal perspective, that's why I prefer infrastructure, is because you give them the protection and then you don't have to do it again.
I'm with you, but I want to clarify. I'm not saying education. I'm saying that like there's something that doesn't exist that I feel should exist at this point, which is some kind of community safety team, which I've mentioned it before, right? It's not that these people are going to go out there and write tickets in the same way that police write tickets, but this is our community. You're coming into our community. You're making it unsafe. We need to have some way to hold you accountable so that it can't just be that everyone has to throw their arms up and then go, well, everyone's done a solution, but people keep running people over because they want to look at social media or do FaceTime while they drive. And, I feel like we are at this juncture through this particular instance where there are copious things to point at to say, let's try something else, right? Like this is where I think we do have an opportunity as TransMAC to say, here's a different solution that's I'm not saying we shouldn't put in some kind of bollards. Like, we do need physical protections. Infrastructure has to be there. But I don't think we have to reduce it to an infrastructure or education. I think there is an opportunity here to envision some new kind of community safety team that's organized around transportation.
Yeah, I don't think it's an either or. I think it can be additive, but I would point to one thing. Like, we kind of, in Orange County, when we talk about transportation system, a lot of times we look at Disney, right? It's like Disney has like the best public transportation in Orange County. Its bus system, you know, it's frequent, it's reliable, it's efficient. When I'm walking in the parking lot, after parking my car, walking up to Epcot, you know what's separating me from the people who are driving? It's not a bunch of Imagineers telling people not to run me over as I'm walking. It's physical protection, right? They have concrete bollards that separate me from the people who are parking their cars at Epcot. So I think it's not necessarily either or, but if, you know, I think physical protection in my opinion, should be the more predominant way to protect our citizens. But again, you know, it's a matter for debate. Mohammed.
Mr. Chair, thanks. Wasn't sure if that was working or
No,
not.
I got you.
All right, thanks. Just a quick question for Ms. Torres, and again, welcome aboard, and thank you for your leadership here. On these options in the bike lanes, excuse me, what is Orange County's position on the green painted bike lanes, and what's your experience from your national safety days? Is that a good first step solution?
I can tell you I was part of the group that installed the first green bike lanes at the City of Orlando. So have a little bit of experience on that. I will say an entire green bike lane, depending on where it is, can be difficult only because of the fact that you have cars. If there's curb cuts, you've got cars driving up on top of it. If you have a section where you don't have a lot of curb cuts, it's great. What I've seen be more effective is have it at conflict areas, right? So at intersections, at maybe larger driveways, at, you know, locations where you have right turn lanes, things like that. That seems to be a lot more efficient, because just like with everything else, if you keep seeing the same thing for miles and miles, you may not pay as much attention to it as you do at certain locations. So I'm not sure what the counties, are we good with it? Okay, everybody's good at the county with the green bike lanes, so.
Yeah, it just intuitively, it seems that as a driver, when you see a different colored pavement,
Yes.
you would know that's a no-go, that's different than my travel lane. So absent the physical separation, but again, I'm ignorant of the research on does it actually, I mean, intuitively, it seems like it should work, but I see your point in conflict areas for sure, you know, because you're providing that skip stripe green, it's high visibility. But also on a continuous basis, I'd be curious if there's any research on that, but obviously your experience is definitely you know, a good measure to go by. It just in the absence of very labor intensive or even maintenance intensive options like the flexible delineators, they're not as cheap as they look, because you're paying that $24,000 every other month.
Yeah,
you know, they're getting wiped out almost as soon as they're put down. They're gone. So if that is something to consider, if the research supports it, that would be great.
And as part of the resurfacing list, as we're looking at these high injury networks, when we have locations where we have a bike lane or a trail of some sort, that's definitely something that we are going to be installing, is those green bike lane markings at those conflict points during resurfacing. So.
Okay, Patrick.
No, I was just going to bring up, I know in the visiting session, we were kind of talking about new ideas, like maybe this is an opportunity to kind of see as like a new infrastructure opportunity, potentially as this as a test, maybe. Just from that, continuing that discussion of maybe exploring that potentially as a different infrastructure separation method to kind of test out.
Sure, that's a good idea. Pat?
On the 11-foot issue for roadways,
Yes.
what are the other jurisdictions in Orange County or the adjacent jurisdictions doing in regard to the width of their roads?
I can only speak a little bit about the City of Orlando. I believe they're looking to do the same thing. And I can tell you this is a tool, low-cost, low-maintenance tool that's being used across the country. So it's really easy to reduce your lane width to 11 feet. You know, one of the things that I know we've looked into and places across the country probably looked into as well is, you know, their buses, you know, Lynx. We talked to Lynx about this before we even ever moved forward in the past, and it's always been 10.5 feet is sufficient. So we went ahead and gave about a half a foot more. So that really, there's been countless studies on the fact that, you know, reducing that lane width really does reduce the speed along that corridor.
So is an issue of safety or an issue of cost?
For the 11.
To 11 feet, yeah.
Well, I think it's an issue of safety, and I think when we are going back in to resurface, that's the time to reduce those lane widths, and that's exactly what we're doing. The problem with going in and removing the pavement markings before you go into resurface is you're going to leave that mark anyway. I'm sure you've driven down roads where they're doing construction and they've removed some of the pavement marking, but they haven't come back with a layer of asphalt and they haven't put in fresh markings. Sometimes at night, it can be kind of confusing. So really the best time to do it, even from a safety perspective, is doing resurfacing.
Does the information that's out there with respect to reducing the size have any indication of how that's affected by the person's age?
I'd have to look into that. I'm not sure about that. That's a really good question.
Because young people like me have a hard time at times with, I like the 12 feet.
Yeah,
But I can't 11.
But I could definitely look into that. That's a really good point. I can
All
look
right,
into
thank
that.
you.
Rod?
Yes, with regard to the bike lanes, I just recently was in Arlington, Virginia, and there's stretches of the road that have that solid green. There's other stretches that are just before, just after, at the intersections. And I tell you, it really jumps out at, you know, maybe it jumps out because I don't drive it every day, becomes habit, but it certainly did stand out, and I think it would be cheaper than your plastic.
Yeah, can I ask one follow-up question about the painted bike lanes? I know, I'm not entirely sure of the specifics, but I know there's been some conversation or maybe developments about not being able to like paint crosswalks like different colors or have like crosswalk art, you know, those kinds of things. Is that something that would prevent us from even doing like a painted bike lane? I'm not sure exactly what the regulation is, but I don't know if that would impact something like that.
No, so the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is the federal manual released from the Federal Highway that gives us, as transportation engineers, the guidance on pavement markings and signage and things of that nature, does mention green bike lanes. So we would be able to, it's not a problem for us to continue with green bike lanes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Ms. Torres. I don't think this will be the last time you'll be at that podium before us, but it was a good first one. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Okay. And next up, we have Emily Bush from Bike Walk Central Florida, here to tell us all about her organization and what they do for our community. She needs no introduction from me, so especially if you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Emily Bush. I'm the Executive Director of Bike Walk Central Florida. I'm here to tell you a little bit about our organization and how we've supported Orange County over the years. So a little bit about our organization. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We recently went through a strategic planning exercise to identify ways that we could really support the communities that we serve. And we ultimately, through this Visioning Zero effort, decided that we wanted to be a safer Central Florida for everyone. So you can see that stands for an acronym. That means that we want to steward partnerships with our community. We want to advocate for safer policies, foster community involvement, empower people to get out and feel safe and comfortable walking, biking, and rolling in their community, and be a resource for information and to be able to connect people to their local governments in order to make change that they want to see. We do this through several different programs as well as some advocacy efforts that we undertake. I'm going to talk about a few of these programs today. One that I don't have a slide for is our Bike 5 Cities Ride that's coming up on October 25th. You can check out our website at bikewalkcentralflorida.org and you can learn all about that event. We have a new ride this year, and that is connecting the main streets in downtown Orlando. So we're going to take you on a guided ride through those main streets, connecting them and showing you how you can ride your bike, walk or roll, whether or not that's a skateboard or on rollerblades, or if you're a mom with a stroller, you can connect all of those main streets with small things with wheels. So I'm going to start by actually talking about our partnership with Orange County and our involvement with the Vision Zero process that Orange County has gone through recently. We were a stakeholder as a part of the completion and the development of that action plan, as we were with Metro Plan Orlando, Seminole, and Osceola counties, and as we continue to be with some of the other counties that we serve across the region. But some of the things that are listed here are the things that we already do to support Orange County's Vision Zero efforts. We collect driver yield rate data, make observations, and provide low-cost engineering recommendations, not just for the high injury network, but all over the county. And I'll talk a lot more about that later on. We conduct before and after data collection for the installation of these countermeasures at crosswalks. Again, I will cover that in a program later on. We work on educational campaigns, which is a part of our safety efforts, not the silver bullet, but we do that through our Best Foot Forward program and also through our Bike Walk Kids youth education program. We support Orange County's expansion of their youth education programs. I'm going to talk about how Orange County helped us pilot that program over the last couple years and the successes that we've seen. And then we conduct high visibility enforcement campaigns, which was actually noted within the document in and of itself. We were named in the report because of how successful we are at the enforcement efforts and really drawing up education around why it's important for drivers to yield and stop for people in marked crosswalks. And then lastly, we support Orange County however we can. If that's through advocacy, through attending public meetings, advocating for changes to policy or infrastructure. And we also do provide support letters. So the SS4A, the Safe Streets for All grant application that Orange County just submitted, we wrote a support letter stating how our organization supports these efforts and how we will continue to support the county as they continue to their road towards zero. First, I wanted to start out, this is a little known program in the west side of Orange County, so out near District 1 and near District 2, where we're working with the Foundation for a Healthier West Orange to identify and complete some trail loop segments that would connect to two sun trails. One is the West Orange Trail, which is a part of the Coast to Coast system, and then to the Shingle Creek Trail, that's further to the west side of that map. And not only are we developing these trail loop systems, so we've done the feasibility study, and we're actually getting ready to request a formal engineering company to help us with making sure that there are no drainage issues or right-of-way limitations in order for us to complete these segments. We also do trail audits and evaluations, and we provide this information to the cities and the county to help them implement low-cost engineering solutions, maybe some education, trail maintenance that makes it easier for people to walk, bike, and roll, not just on the trail system, but those connections that get you to the trail. And then we work with the foundation, who set aside $5 million in grant funding to eventually construct. Now, $5 million doesn't get you much these days, but how do we match and leverage that funding? So we've identified federal and state and other foundational grant funding that we will help the cities and the county go after. And as a partnership, we provide the story that you need to tell us the importance of making those connections in the community. So this is just a small part of what we do. We also help some of our communities develop some active transportation plans. So the town of Oakland asked us to come in and do a sidewalk gap analysis. So we looked at how that they could connect those projects, and again did the same thing, identified opportunities for funding for them, looked at low-cost engineering solutions for them to make those connections, and identified the grant opportunities. We did this for the city of Apopka as well. We looked at their entire network, and we did it more from an economic development standpoint and for connecting natural resources. The city of Apopka has Rock Springs, and they also have the Lake Apopka Loop. They're on either sides of the city, so how do you connect those two really great natural assets through an active transportation network? And that active transportation network isn't just trails. We can't put trails everywhere. It's looking at where sidewalks need to exist, where those connectors need to go, where we can augment with bike lanes that are protected or buffered. So we looked at an entire system and identified these projects and provided the city a list of these projects, and again, where they could get various funding to do these. The city has actually asked us to update this. They've had a lot of development. They've actually done some of these projects since we've come in and completed the study a few years ago. So we are going to be working with the city this year to update this network and provide better connectivity to some of the projects that have been developed recently. So I'm really here today to tell you more about the Best Foot Forward Pedestrian Safety Program. Orange County has been a pioneer partner in this program for over a decade, and I'll get into the history of the program in a minute. But I really want to start and tell you what the program is all about. And it started with a NHTSA study that actually was out of Gainesville, Florida in the early 2000s, and it looked at how we approach driver education and changing the opinions of drivers and how they treat people who are trying to cross the road. And it's doing so through using enforcement, education, and engineering, and of course evaluating the metrics associated with that. So on the right-hand side, you can see there's a pedestrian at a crosswalk, and this is something called a dilemma zone. And what we do is we go out and collect driver yield rate data. So we have trained data collectors that step their foot into the crosswalk, showing intent to cross as the statute requires. And we mark a distance based on the speed limit. Usually that distance is about 5 miles greater because we know no one's doing the speed limit these days. And as soon as that car approaches that marked, it's either an advanced warning sign if it's already in existence, and or it's something that we mark out with a cone or a flag. And as that car approaches, the data collector puts their foot in the crosswalk. The driver does one of three things. They either stop and let that person cross, so we mark that as that vehicle yielded, or they don't stop. They either make an evasive maneuver around the pedestrian, honk, and maybe some explicitives are shown, or they slam on their brake. And so we note these things. We note when and how often the driver is stopping short. Maybe there's a sight distance issue. Maybe the signs are not visible. The striping needs to be redone. Or maybe it's a distraction. Maybe the road's very wide. Maybe we can narrow the lane, right? So it's a little bit more obvious to slow down and to pay attention to the pedestrian in the crosswalk. And that is how we gain our recommendations and provide those to the partners. And then we also look at the lowest performing of those crosswalks, and that's where most of our enforcement takes place. So we give this data to the community and to the law enforcement partners, and then they go in and say, okay, we need to go do some education to the drivers here. I'll talk a little bit about that education in a minute. So the Best Foot Forward Pedestrian Safety Program started in Orange County back in 2012. So like I said, we really appreciate the support from Orange County over the last decade. From there, and through MetroPlan Orlando, I cannot ignore the fact that MetroPlan gave us the seed money to get started, and Orange County followed along with the city of Orlando, who's been helping fund the program and its implementation since 2012. We expanded our program into Osceola County in 2017 and then Seminole County into 2019. And from there, we took a rapid expansion through the support from the Florida Department of Transportation. They paid for the expansion into Brevard, Volusia, and Marion counties in 2023. They helped support the expanded program into Lake and Polk counties last year, and actually at the end of this year, we're going to be heading north into St. John's and Duval County. If you're familiar with Duval County, that's Jacksonville. So we are headed really far north. We have conversations with some of the TPOs and the different districts around the state that are very interested in this program because of its successes, and I'll talk about that next. So because we've been operating this program for a few years in Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties, we were able to collect this data. And this shows the bar graph, which is the number of pedestrian and bicycle deaths and incapacitating injuries, so those serious injuries, per 100,000 people. And that's from 2012 when we started to last year. And then you can see the driver yield rate in the line graph above that. So as you can see, our deaths and serious injuries were increasing into the mid-teens of the 2020 years, but so was our driver yield rate. Our driver yield rates continued to increase, and as you can see, our deaths and serious injuries have been decreasing within that 3-county region. So we don't say that we're the silver bullet in fixing this problem, but we are certainly a part of the solution and glad to have partners like Orange County that recognize the importance of this program and how it's going to help us get to zero, right, with the other things that you all and the county and the Public Works Department are doing. So this is just the numbers from last year. We conducted we had over 10,000 community interactions, and that's just not people that attend an event. Those are the actual number of conversations we have. That number would be, 5, 6, 10 times that amount because we go to pretty large events and table and share information, but these are the actual conversations that we're having with people about pedestrian safety. We've had over 20 crosswalks improved from enforcement alone, and that's a 15% increase overall. It's, again, not the only thing that improves the driver yield rate, but enforcement at crosswalks is certainly a part of that suite of things that makes it safer for everyone. We've had 22 crosswalks improved from engineering, and those are low-cost striping and signage projects at a 22% average. And then we've conducted over 32,000 stage crossings at more than 100 crosswalks around Central Florida. So to say that we're a little bit of a crosswalk expert is probably an understatement. We have a ton of data that we can share that shows what type of striping, what type of signage works in different communities, on different roadway types, in different contexts. So we have a plethora of information that we can provide. Data that we can certainly provide the TransMAC if they're interested, and we provide Orange County currently. So this is the program impact over the last decade plus. You can see there's some big numbers listed here. Over 1,000 engineering recommendations. We've had over 800 crosswalk details. That's the number of enforcements that we've conducted at specific crosswalks. And for our evaluation, we have over 2,400 collections completed. We've monitored close to 400 crosswalks to date and have done over 120,000 stage crossings. So, like I said, we have a lot of data that we can share. Here's what we've done in Orange County, specifically from 2012 to present. And mind you, in 2012, it was just a pilot, so we only did a few crosswalks. This year, we monitored 12. So it increases year over year, especially as our organization gets more experience at doing this and gets more funding to be able to do this as well. So you can see those numbers there. What I really like pointing out is the fact that we've got 65 crosswalks across the county that we've monitored to date, and those driver yield rates continue to increase over 28% so far across the crosswalks that we've monitored, and that has to do with those engineering improvements and those recommendations that have been implemented. Let's talk about some of those recommendations. There have been a few RFBs. Those are the rectangular rapid flashing beacons. Those are the on-demand push buttons that you push to get drivers' attention to cross the road. They work, especially in certain contexts, not everywhere, and we don't want to put them up everywhere because they might kind of numb out to a driver that they need to stop in certain areas. So there's other things that you can do, and we recommend. But we'll start at Forsyth and Katy Way Trail. That was a very dangerous crossing. The lowest driver yield rate average was 32%. With the RFB installed, it is now up 80%. So we are very happy with that. We've done a lot of enforcements out there. One of the highest speeds we saw was 80 miles an hour on that facility. So the RFB for a trail crossing really makes a big difference. Avalon Park Boulevard and Auburn Cove had a 30% increase. It was already kind of a slower speed facility in an area that drivers were aware that people were crossing, but just needed some emphasis. And so that 30% increase with the RFB is something that we typically see. Waterford Chase Parkway and Oak Chase Drive, again, 39% increase. Having the island median also helps slow drivers down. It's a physical barrier. They have to slow and kind of go around it, right, to make sure that they don't damage their car, but at the same time, they're looking for people that are trying to cross the road. And then at Oak Ridge, there was a 25% increase for the mid-block traffic signal. It's not perfect. Drivers are still kind of recognizing that that exists, but with continued education and continued monitoring, I imagine that that driver yield rate will continue to increase over time. Some other low-cost engineering solutions have been posted state law vertical signs, which have shown a little bit of an increase. Again, it really depends on the speed of the driver, but at International Drive and Osterian Court, it went up 10%. And then also posted speed limit signs in school crossings. This was installed at West Oak Ridge and Magic Way. That went up 13%. And then a pedestrian traffic signal was later added in last year, so we no longer collect data there because we call that a success and move on to another one. So that's the Best Foot Forward program in a nutshell, specifically to Orange County and the successes that we've had moving the needle in Orange County. Now I want to talk about our Bike Walk Kids program, which has been really impacted by Orange County and the Florida Department of Transportation. They provided the additional pilot funding for us to get this program off the ground. This program does helmet fittings at community events. We put on bike rodeos. We do bike giveaways, work with other community and foundation partners to get funding to buy bikes and give them away to the community. We go in and do in-school presentations. We take over a PE class. And then we also do curriculum and materials and provide that to the PE teachers and to other individuals that might want to do their own education. And we've worked in micromobility education specific to e-bike and e-scooter safety since we've seen an increase of that out on our roadways. And that has been a good response by our community. And a lot of individuals are asking for us to do more of that. So that's something that we're exploring this year. These are the various events that we've done so far just in Orange County. This program is across our service area, which right now is entire District 5, which covers 9 counties. And so you can see here, these are just the events that we've done in the different districts. We've only been doing this in Orange County for a year and a half, 2 years. So we really need to have your all input as to where to go for doing these events, especially with the funding that we receive. A lot of time is we get information from Public Works or we get information from the community at the community events that we already attend, and then we follow up and we make sure that we can go out there and do the education that's necessary to the public. So this is the program overall, those impacts and the things that we've done. We've been able to secure some additional funding for direct services for this, but some of this has been done pro bono through our organization and the fundraising efforts. Bike 5 is a fundraising event, so thank you for those that participate in that and provide us funding because this is where it goes. But our impact has been huge. We've been able to fit over 3,000 helmets on kids' heads, making sure that they fit properly, give away over 900 bicycles in the community, most to communities of need, and issue 292 bike rodeo certificates. So that's how many children have gone through our bike rodeo program. This is just what we've done in Orange County to date. Like I said, Orange County has been a big partner. A lot of those bike giveaways have been because of our relationship and our partnership with Orange County. I will give a big shout out to Christine Moore because she was the one that found a lot of the funding and was able to give away a lot of the bikes. But we have partnerships with Orlando Health and many others that help us do these types of programs. So that's the Bike Walk Kids. Some of the other things that we do outside of that is advocacy and support. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the advocacy projects that we've done. This has either been part of just Bike Walk being an advocate for Orange County and the work that they do, or Orange County asking us to come in and do these things. I'll start with the University Boulevard Safety Study. We were a part of the road safety audit, so the walking audit that was conducted. Bike Walk has a wheelchair, and I bring a stroller. I have another child, so I was prepared for this one. And so we brought out small things with wheels, and we had the group test them out, sit in the wheelchair, push the stroller? How easy is it to push small things with wheels down University Boulevard? We also had a bicycle, and we also had a periscope, so it's difficult to see, but that wooden box that someone's holding on the left side of that photo gives you the view of a child. And it is fascinating. So I highly recommend that you can actually make those at home. It was like $20 to make. We borrowed that from the city of Orlando to be able to do this, but it shows what that perspective is from 3 or 4 feet versus your 5 or 6 foot standard adult. So we were able to provide comments, and those were able to be implemented into the design, and we were able to be a part of those conversations and that safety study. These are the specific, on the left-hand side, the specific projects that we've supported over the years. I'm sure there's more, but these are the ones that I took note of. One of the kind of nuanced projects was we were asked to create a pedestrian safety presentation to really educate the community as to how to follow the pedestrian-related statutes, not so much on the driver's side, which is what the Best Foot Forward program does, but really draw out and show in graphic form how to abide by those statutes and how to be a good pedestrian, essentially, and be safe when you're doing so. So we created all of this information, submitted it in May of last year. I'm not sure if the county has used it or not, but I know that they provided it to some of the community members that were seeking this information. So these are some of the additional things that we do for the county. The last project that I want to talk about is the Pine Hill Safety Project. We were asked to review the 90% plan set back in February of 2021. This was before a lot of the Public Works staff came on board, so I will say that. We reviewed that plan set and provided comments in February. I followed back up in October of 2022 when I had not heard back from the county, and unfortunately, Brett had to go and hunt that information down for me when he started at the county in 2022. So I was able to see the comment response letter, and I was not excited about the responses that we received, so I'm going to share some of those with you today. But this is why we're having these conversations, is how to improve design and the opportunity for those to walk, bike, and roll safely through these projects that Orange County is implementing. So one of the questions I asked was, could you implement an LPI that's a leading pedestrian interval, giving the pedestrian a few extra seconds to get across the road? And the response from the consultant was, this would require an additional study. Now, this is not the case. We've come a long way since 2021. Part of the Safe Streets for All grant application in the county is to implement leading pedestrian intervals across the entire county. So hopefully this will be done at this intersection if this grant is awarded. Again, another reason why we wrote that support letter, to support it. We'd like to see that. We also called for physically separating the bicycle lanes, having been out and worked for Orange County neighborhoods and supported the Pine Hill Safe Neighborhood Program in the past. I knew and experienced driver behavior on Pine Hills Road and knew that even though they were providing the buffered bike lane, it would really be beneficial if they were able to separate it. So apparently that was outside of the scope of the safety project. Again, as you heard from Lauren, that is something that they're taking into consideration now, and I'm thankful for, especially with the Vision Zero action plan now being implemented. Some of the other comments that actually they took into considerations on the right-hand side, and it was really some utility conflicts, some signage that needed to be moved, and it looks like they addressed them. I just never received final plans. I never received the comment response letter till a few years later. Even though I asked for it and advocated for it, there was just a break in conversation, in communication, but we still were here beating the drum, trying to make sure that that project was going to be safe for everyone using that facility in the long run. So there's just an example of some of the ways that we can support the county with that additional advocacy and that additional support that I think everybody would like to see from a third party. So with that, I wanted to talk a little bit about what Orange County has been contributing to our organization to do all of these great things. So in the past fiscal year, they've provided $100,000. That has generally gone mostly to the Best Foot Forward program to support that program and its pedestrian safety efforts, with a little bit of funding going towards the Bike Walk Kids program, and then a little bit of funding going to project support. I was told this year that Orange County has the same budget that they had last year, which is totally understandable. But unfortunately, our organization saw increase in pricing and in costs, just like every other organization did. So we cannot provide the same level of service as we did last year. So this year, the county is asking to spend less on the Best Foot Forward program and more on the Bike Walk Kids program, as you can see in that second diagram. And what we really need to make up the difference is a very small dollar amount. And that would be able to provide the project support that we originally provided this past year and in years past, as well as put the Best Foot Forward program back to the funding levels that we had received in last year, in years prior. The county has asked and has always been a supporter of that program. So I'd hate to see us not receive the support to continue the efforts with pedestrian safety, especially with you all taking on the charge to get to zero. So with that, that concludes my presentation. This is the staff that's behind me. It's not just me doing this. And I appreciate all of their hard efforts and work. Like I said, we're a nonprofit. All of our staff are very passionate about what we do. We truly care about the communities that we serve. And I am here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bush. I appreciate so much that you were able to come out here and join us this evening.
Yes.
And one reason it was important for me to have you guys out here is because we heard from Lynx about our bus system. We heard from Sunrail about our train system. And it's important to me, I thought, to hear about the people who bike, walk, and roll in our communities, either for recreation, but also for transportation. So trying to cover all those different forms of transportation here in Orange County as we consider our future here. I'd like to open it up for any commission members with questions or comments.
Mr. Chair.
You got it.
Thank you, Ms. Bush, for an excellent presentation, and as you mentioned, very good use of imagery and telling the story without a lot of words, so really appreciate that.
Yes.
Just wanted to take this moment and ask, who are your primary, where are your funds coming from? Who are your funders?
Absolutely, mostly government entities. So either the state, that's through FDOT, Orange County, City of Orlando, even small cities. We scale our programs to make it affordable for our communities to participate, because we know that we really like to see them do the infrastructure that's really necessary to bring about pedestrian and bicycle safety, build the connections. So we really strive to ensure that our programs are inexpensive and that the value that we bring to our communities is large enough for them to go after additional grant dollars to get these projects and, like I said, do what we need to do. But 85% of our budget is government funding, government contracts, government grants. The rest of it is through foundations and support. And then we have a little bit of fundraising. It's been a little challenging from the fundraising aspect, I'll be honest. But we've had a lot of success with getting local governments and state governments on board supporting the efforts that we have, especially because the state has taken on Target Zero, and our programs align with the efforts of Target Zero.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to come back to some conversations that we were having earlier in our work session, and it just sounds to me like your organization and others like yours, who are really essentially subject matter experts, would be great partners for this group. As we were having that conversation about allocation of funds and going out and doing different research type studies or experimental applications out in the world. It seems to me that this organization and others would be great beneficiaries of, if we are going to expend funds to evaluate a certain issue or identified problem in a community, these types of organizations would be great partners for that. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. They're out there doing it. They know more about this than we'll learn in a lifetime, and it'd be better to carry forward their knowledge than. So really appreciate the work that you guys do, and I certainly look forward to partnering with you.
Thank you.
Zach.
Thank you for the thorough presentation. As someone who lives in one of the corridors that was called out, I gotta say, I do have some additional questions though, like specifically that intersection, the Forsyth and Katy Way with the beacons. So there's a series, it's that crosswalk where the trail comes across is in between University and Aloma. So that's if you're traveling north on Forsyth to be able to get to Aloma, you've first waited at that light at University. And if you drive that road, then you know that the way that the lights are timed, if you're at the light at University and Forsyth and you want to make it to that Aloma and Forsyth light, if you drive the speed limit, you'll miss it. If you drive 5 miles over the speed limit, you'll make it. And if you're at the end of that line of cars, so then you're driving maybe 10 miles over. And then if you're speeding in late, then you're 20. And then I can see how that person got to 80 miles an hour, which is insane. The issue now is that there's been another light installed. So now as people are coming out of Costco or the overflow parking for the Auto Nation, as they're coming out of, they built it's like a 4-city block storage facility. It's corporate. It's not like a public storage facility. There's nothing going in there, right? So now this intersection that was already bad, which was improved by the beacon, is now made even worse. It's now even more dangerous. Almost every day I'm out there and I see people, I'm stopping when I see it flashing and people going 50 miles, 60 miles an hour past me, not having any regard. And I've seen the full spectrum of, okay, you get the sheriffs out there and they're on the motorcycles and they're monitoring and they're seeing the people. It doesn't change the behavior, right? Like nothing changes. So then that makes me wonder, what's your survey time after you, like when you're showing us these statistics that the intersection is improved, at what point do you stop surveying to come to this conclusion and say, hey, it's an improvement of X percentage or Y percentage? Because we know you go in and you make a design change, as we were talking about in the working agenda meeting. When you make that change, it has an impact, but then when it becomes normalized, maybe people stop paying attention to it. So I'm not trying to say that I don't believe you or what you're doing is not real, right? But from my personal experience, I see that and I'm like, I understand that everyone's doing their best, but then my day-to-day life as a resident of unincorporated Orange County, I'm getting like the worst end of the stick, right? And that's every day I have to deal with that intersection multiple times to come home or go home, and it's like minutes of my life that just get sucked out. And then when I think about on an annual basis, how much of my life is gone because of the way these intersections are set up and the way everything is done. So I guess first, like, can you tell me what's the survey time afterwards to come to this conclusion of the improvement state? And then, yeah, can we go from there?
Sure, absolutely. I'll try to address all your comments there. First and foremost, we do more than just one data collection after an improvement is installed. We know that that is going to be an anomaly, right? Drivers are approaching that the new signal or the new infrastructure for the first time. They're going to be slowing down. They're going to be cautious, right? But as you said, they kind of get numb to it overall. So we do 2 or 3 collections. We do take this information back to Orange County, and we do evaluate these crosswalks year over year. Because one thing that we don't want to do is put the same resources towards the same crosswalk, and if it's showing that it has improved, then we do need to move on. There are a lot of crosswalks that could use our help in Orange County, and the Public Works and the Sheriff's Office, who we interact with and decide where we're going to put these resources, make that decision. That is not our call to make. So if they see the data and they see that it's improving, they've gone out there and done the enforcement and said it's not as bad as the last time, then that's their decision to make. The second thing I want to talk about is that facility in the context of that facility, because context absolutely matters. I mentioned earlier when we were in the workshop, and I didn't mention this to the public, but I'm a land use planner by trade. I teach this stuff, right, at UCF, and I used to be a small city planner, so I understand. That is a cut-through facility. So unfortunately, yes, you made it worse by adding that additional signal, which is going to make the drivers feel like they're having to race even further to get to that light. And one of the things that we do through the education of the Best Foot Forward program is to remind people that they're in a metal box, right, that has air conditioning, that has their entertainment, they're comfortable, they're sitting. Why rush? If you could save a few seconds and just slow down and understand where you're at in your community, it can save someone's life. And that's a lot of what we try to educate when we go out into the community and educate. Now, could we do more of it in an isolated area, specifically to that cut-through facility? Absolutely. But Orange County is a big county, and we have a lot of areas to cover, and a lot of communities ask us for these resources. So we're not always able to be where we need to, which is why we need citizens and advocates like yourself to help tell that story, and why it's important for you to slow down and take those 2 seconds. You're not going to rush through those lights, but you also have to understand the context of the facility, because certain facilities that have those rapid flashing beacons do have success long term. So I'm sorry you're not seeing it there. We will take that comment back when we have that meeting with Orange County later on next month, and let them know that you are still seeing unfortunate, incidents or near misses at that location, and bring it back up.
Are you able to tell me, though, like, explicitly how long you do the surveys for after a change is made? Like, do you go...
It depends on it depends on when the installation was done. We do it 5 times a year every other month, or 6 times a year every other month. So if the installation was done in July, then we'll go back out in August and November or whatnot, and then we'll bring that information back to the county. It's a 1-year program. We're only funded for 1 year. The county and the sheriff's office might make that decision to move elsewhere. So that's not our decision.
So from my understanding, then, your organization has an existing schedule when you conduct these the crosswalk evaluations, and then that's just throughout the year those dates are fixed, and then depending on what's going on within the county, then that's how the evaluations are distributed.
If the county communicates with us and lets us know that the project is being installed at a certain date, we'll hold off and we'll do back-to-back collections. It also depends on when we're doing those collections. If it's spring or winter time, you'll get more trail traffic, especially at that location. In the summertime, you don't really get that as much, so we don't necessarily get to observe natural crossings, especially right now. You don't quite see it, especially when we're out there. And it also depends on hurricanes, so we try to work around the hurricane season, just because it has been debilitating for us to get some of our data collection done by a timely manner based on our scope of services to the counties and cities.
So, sorry, to clarify, the operational structure for how this is done is that it's not like the county says, all right, we want to go and do one over here and we want to go and do one over there.
Correct.
You have an existing schedule, and then the county is asking you to task certain locations within that schedule.
Correct. So once a year, we go in with the county and the sheriff's office, and we identify however many locations that they budget for that year. It's been 12 historically, so 2 for each district.
And what's the cost per location?
It varies, but right now,
If we were having 12 and it was, we can do the math.
It was $63,000 last year. I think it's like 74 or 75 this year. It's in my notes in the presentation, but I don't see those here. So I don't know it off the top of my head, but it did increase slightly. Part of that increase, I will say, and I neglected to say this earlier, was MetroPlan Orlando has historically funded at least a portion of this program for Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties, and has asked not to fund the program this year. So that $100,000 that we got to augment the program is no longer in existence, which is why the program increased so much for Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties.
And then my only other question was, it was early on in the presentation. Sorry, I'm going to try and get this up here. It was the contrast of, here we go, the bike and pedestrian serious injuries versus driver yield rate, right? So it starts out in 2012 it looks like it's at like 13 or 14 deaths with a 17% yield rate. And then the most recent data here, 2024, same like 12 or 13, hard to tell, and a 49% yield rate. And it's just, I look at that and I say, okay, there's more people yielding, but about the same amount of people having calamitous collisions. From your perspective, right, like what's the other information that's not captured here that's affecting this situation? Like, how are we arriving at essentially, we're back at 2012 numbers. There doesn't seem to be a tremendous trend here, right? We spiked in 2015, and then it's gone down, and it seems to have stayed relatively around the same over the course of 2017 to 2024, and now in 2024, it's close to 2012. What information can you share with us that can help us have some more insight on, like, what's taking place here?
Sure. So there's a couple things that are missing from this graph and this information, and I think it's important for you all to consider. That's the number of drivers that are driving on our roadways has increased, right, since 2012, and the number of vehicle miles traveled has increased since 2012. You see a spike a little bit in 2021. That was post-COVID, and so that's where you see an increase in serious injuries and fatalities, which really kind of augmented and put Vision Zero on the map for a lot of our communities across the United States, and specifically here in Florida, who's one of the worst in the country, especially at killing people that are trying to walk, bike, and roll. One of the things I didn't mention is that in 2012, the first Dangerous by Design report came out. That was done by Smart Growth America, looking at the top metro cities that had the top serious injuries and fatalities. And Orlando was number one at that point in time. So it did increase because it takes time for that infrastructure to be built, right? To be programmed, planned, designed, constructed. And then you start to see that leveling off. Part of that has to do with, like I said, the increase in the number of people driving, the number of vehicle miles traveled. Orange County, Seminole, and Osceola County, if you're familiar with Osceola County, has grown rapidly. So there's a lot more people driving, and they're driving for longer distances, and they're speeding a lot more, which is why we're having to combat with the number of serious injuries and fatalities, and why you don't see a distinct drop in that is because we're still dealing with that post-COVID speeding, distracted, and aggressive driving. That's what the state is really targeting now, and that's what was noted in the Vision Zero action plan, or those behaviors that the county is trying to work to improve.
Great, thanks. And I know, like, I probably just put you on the spot, and it's not the most comfortable exchange, and
I'm used to it.
Not to top it off with a negative thing, but as a skateboarder, it is it's disappointing to not have more direct advocacy for skateboarding, especially because it is directly criminalized in the city of Orlando. And without the support of other organizations, it makes it incredibly difficult for skateboarders to advocate for themselves. It would be much appreciated to see Bike Walk Central Florida take a more direct stance and maybe have some more explicit examples to point to that say that skateboarding is a welcome part of our community and an acceptable and a healthy way to get around as well.
Sure. If I can comment, I was the city planner at the city of Castleberry during the Skate 32707 project, so I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that was a group of advocates that came together because they wanted a skate park in the city. They wanted a safe place to skate, and so I was the planner in charge with helping change the land use and zoning for what is now Wheel Park Phase 1 and Wheel Park Phase 2, which just had a ribbon cutting. I will state that in March of 2020, City of Castleberry was successful in getting a parks referendum passed by like 78% of the city, and that funding was used to build the two skate and rolling facilities In addition, Bike Walk just updated its strategic plan to include small things with wheels. So that was part of my kind of experience with Castleberry and the importance of including skateboarding and other types of mobility devices. So we are headed in that direction, and I appreciate your comments and I appreciate your advocacy towards skateboarders in our community, because it should not be criminalized and it is a mode of transportation.
It's appreciated. Thank you.
One quick question about this slide, since we're on it. I noticed, with the driver yield rate, you had a big jump from 2016 to 17 to 36 to 44%. And it's kind of gone up, but plateaued a little bit since then. And I wonder if you had any thoughts on why that is and what could be done to continue those improvements.
Absolutely. I'd have to go back and dig into the data. Some of the reasons why we probably have a plateau is because of the crosswalks that we're identifying to monitor in the program. These are spot checks, right, throughout the county. Some of them are in areas that have really great yield rates, and we go in and we do baseline data, and then the county says, we don't need to continue monitoring there anymore, let's move on. But that does skew the overall average, because that is included in the overall driver yield rates of the counties, and then of course in this graph, because we take all of those into consideration. What you saw at 17 and 24% were when we were only monitoring 5 crosswalks within each of those jurisdictions. Remember, in 2017 is when Osceola County joined, and then 2019 was when Seminole County joined. So we're getting more data now that's going to either augment or increase the driver yield rate or decrease it, which is why you see it somewhat being static, is because the number of crosswalks that we're monitoring across those 3 counties has increased as well. So some of them have good yield rates when we go out and collect that data, just to reassure the county that they're doing the right thing, that those crosswalk countermeasures are effective. But it's also because we went from only collecting 5 to doing more like 36 crosswalks, right? So that's going to change the data a little bit.
Okay, great. Pat, you're up.
Let me ask you a question on that particular chart that's
Sure.
up there. And this is in the context of pedestrian safety. So this has to do with what the governments are doing lately to let pedestrians cross busy streets that do not have a signalized intersection. You may have a raised crosswalk, you have the yellow signs, and they can push a button, and then the lights blink and all that type of stuff. Does this indicate that only about half of the people approaching that type of situation stop?
Correct.
The other half hits the pedestrian, right?
Well, or go around them.
I understand.
Hopefully not hit them.
What's the optimum that you think in percentage that they should achieve by virtue of that particular device?
Great question. So typically, we'd like to see above 70%.
Okay. So are those sort of national numbers?
No, those are just based on our data collection that we've done, and all of the stage crossings that we've done within the 9 counties now that we're serving.
Okay. So what do you think needs to be done to take that from 50% up to 70%?
Additional infrastructure, additional education, and additional enforcement. But we're limited on the amount of funding, and our government partners.
Okay, is there anything in connection with equipment that would be able to assist that?
Yes.
I understand if you stick a policeman out there with a sign, you better slow down, you'll get better enforcement. But this is becoming, I see more and more of this to let people cross instead of putting a signalized intersection there. And again, 50% is not very good. Okay, all right, thank you very much.
I have one question about the work you did for the city of Apopka with the trails. Yeah, if we could go back, that'd be great. The city of Apopka Active Transportation Network. One of the things you said, one of the factors that you evaluated, I think you said, was from economic development perspective. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. The city really wanted us to connect their downtown to some of the recreational opportunities and just really connect the community a little bit better through active transportation network and infrastructure. So we used the They had some bones already established, some ideas of where they wanted some of those trails to go, and the wide sidewalks and how to access businesses. So we used some of that information. We also workshopped with the community. We did a lot of stakeholder engagement, had a workshop with the commission as to where they wanted to see those connections to improve economic development opportunities. We even brought DOT out and did a walking audit on US 441. At the time, there was a driver that almost struck the mayor. It was incredible to see, but he understood the importance. DOT understood the importance. Unfortunately, they just resurfaced that facility, so they said, well, come back to us in 10 years and we'll make these improvements to make it safer. But we did ask and put in recommendations in that study as to what DOT could do and how the city could advocate for DOT to make those improvements specific to US 441. Most of those infrastructure improvements were off-network on 5th Street and some of the other side streets that would be a lot safer for people to walk, bike, and roll and to get to the backsides of some of those businesses in Apopka.
So does the data show us that trails or other sort of pedestrian and bike infrastructure, does that improve economic conditions?
Absolutely. There are studies across the United States that indicate that if you put in a bike lane, that retail sales increases anywhere from 15% to 30%. Same thing with a trail. It just depends on how the land uses treat those facilities. So it's not just the transportation infrastructure that has to go in. You build it, they might come, but if you build it and support it in a way that helps them get there more conveniently and more frequently, then it'll really improve economic conditions for that community.
Because we looked at a slide earlier tonight about some of the costs of the bike and pedestrian infrastructure on Orange Avenue. What we didn't see was any return on investment potentially from economic activity. So I would assume you think that's a valid consideration when we're thinking about these improvements. What do we also get on the front end?
Absolutely. And I would recommend that it's not just about the economic development improvement, it's also about the lives that are saved. Sure. And the serious injuries that are not, that aren't happening, right? So don't just think about it about the business side of things, but the human impact and the human lives that you're saving by doing these things.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from commission members? Okay, Ms. Bush, thank you so much for coming and joining us this evening. It was very educational. I appreciate it. Okay, the last part of our agenda for this Marathon TransMAC Day is member comments. Now, I'm going to keep mine real brief because I realized in the preparation for this meeting, or by I realized, I mean someone told me, that the last time we met was June 10th, which was 2 days before I presented to the Board of County Commissioners on behalf of TransMAC at their transportation visioning session. So just by way of debriefing the commission on that appearance. So I presented to them, they were discussing, as we've talked about, a potential sales tax in 2026, whether for transportation only or for infrastructure. And I kind of briefed them on our conversations up until this point on that issue. And the way I kind of structured the presentation, I did my best, as you all know, I have my own personal opinions, but I did my best to just represent the general majority of the commission in that presentation. And one of the things I said we were unanimous on is that we learned in the course of our budget review that we know for sure, we all agree we don't have enough money, right? So we know that for sure. But then the question is, what do we do? And so I kind of went back and forth and kind of went through our conversations that we had using evidence of the resurfacing program deficits and of kind of that deficit and funding that we need, and then talked about the infrastructure versus transportation sales tax, what that would allow us to do under both those kind of programs. Like we heard from Lynx, we heard from Sunrail, how those things would benefit them or how they wouldn't so much. And then kind of like I polled the commission here on what everyone thought. And how I kind of communicated that to the county commission is that, there was a very slight hesitant majority that supported a sales tax, just a squeaker. But the way I framed it is not so much from a policy perspective as what I heard from the commission. It's not that I don't think we need this. It's like, do we have, it's a political question, it's a referendum, is this going to pass kind of thing. So I said that's what I heard from my fellow commission members was more of a concern about the ability to pass and execute a plan rather than the need for such a policy to begin with. Had some good question and answer period with the county commissioners and the mayor on that. I believe we were all provided a copy of that visioning session if anyone had the opportunity to go back and listen to it, or I think you still have the chance to. Their next one is in September. But I just did want to let the commission know how that presentation went. I felt like we had talked about it, but apparently it was actually 2 days after our last meeting, so I just want to brief you on that. Okay, any additional comments on the visioning session, if you had the opportunity to listen, or any thoughts?
Mr. Chair, thank you for that, and thanks for the briefing or debrief on that, and for you representing us. I just want to, I guess, on the record, say I understand there was some additional discussion there from I guess, directed at some of my thoughts as a member. But to clarify the record on that, I've been clear about what I feel our job is here, and that is not to advocate for or against a tax. Now, how the conversation went and how that context maybe was taken, I'm not going to speak for, but I do appreciate you filling us in. So just to clarify my position, since I think my position was stated by in that meeting, like all of us here, we want our infrastructure funded. Right? That's absolutely something I agree with. I think you just mentioned that we are unanimous on that, and I agree with you. Where again, I've been very vocal is that this commission is here to provide guidance, advice on how does our transportation system look, where do we direct our investment, and not necessarily to go convince the public for funding. That is something that the public has to bring to us. We can certainly, I think someone said earlier that we can certainly show what it would be like if we had this, that, or the other, and that's certainly part of our charge. The other part of our charge is, again, to provide guidance and advice to our elected officials on what they do. So just wanted to clarify the record that this isn't a matter of being pro or against any policy position. We're not here to do that. So I appreciate you saying that we're here strictly in an advisory position to look at the merits of these investments and provide guidance on that.
Thank you, Mohammed. Any other thoughts on the visioning session? Zach, raise your hand. Absolutely.
Oh, well, just general comments.
Or general member comments here. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's hard. It's sometimes hard to find the ways to talk about this stuff without it being like some aspect of argumentativeness or confrontation, but I guess perhaps like that is what makes it productive. I do want to go back to, what Patrick touched on about the statistics, where it's like, how much can we expect the infrastructure to deliver? How much can we expect these systems to deliver? And again, to me, this is a clear indication that we're asking the systems to deliver outcomes that they cannot. And in order to really talk about and think about how to make our transportation safe and what are those innovations, we need to think beyond infrastructure, because setting it and forgetting it means that people will only stop 49% of the time at the crosswalk, right? When they're out there just interacting with the infrastructure, there's no way to keep our communities safe. And again, I'm going to drive this point home. We need to have community safety coalitions. There needs to be some other layer of code or permitting or something that gives communities the power to go out and take accountability in their streets and force that accountability on the drivers who are using the streets in those communities. It's not pretty to hear. Nobody likes to talk about it. Enforcement and taxing and penalizing and shaming are not things that get anyone elected, right? That's all stuff that gets people unelected. And that's, again, why we have a privilege being in this position. We can touch all these hot button conversations that a candidate can't get anywhere near, right? Like, we can talk about maybe people should be shamed. Maybe if you're looking at your phone and you kill someone in the car, yeah, everyone in town should probably know who you are and know that you did something terrible. Because no one in town should want to be that person. And when we talk about it from such bureaucratized places, as much as we want to be human and as much as we want to actually care, we're never going to be able to care enough, because we're boxing ourselves in when we are the commission that's been given the power to box ourselves out. And again, I'm going to say it as explicitly as I can. I went up to the state capitol. I worked with state legislators. I got Republicans to put up $267,000 to build public skate solutions using underutilized public property here in town. They agreed to it. There's people in the state capitol that are ready to do things that people here in town believe are impossible. And the issue is that we've just never built the proper coalitions to get them to happen. I don't think that I'm like some hero who has all the solutions. I know that everything that I'm talking about up here is not unique to me. This is things that people who work for the county, that elected officials, that all kinds of people have thought about, but I don't have to worry about getting elected, right? So I can bring these conversations to life. So I really significantly hope that I don't ask anyone on this commission to like get on the same page and say that I'm right and the ideas that I'm putting out there are correct, but I hope you can continue to at least give me the leeway to make these conversations very real in a public space. And where there is an opportunity to take action, I hope that everyone on this commission will be able to have enough faith in me that I'm not just some weirdo dude with a skateboard. I'm an actual get it done guy with a business, an organization, a background in design, and I care about people, and I'm an anthropologist, right? I want to go out, I want to get all the voices, even if I totally disagree with you, I want to get all those voices and only then come back and start decide about what we are doing. So I'm so proud to be part of this commission, and I know that everyone else on this commission is here to do the best things. And I felt the need to say all this explicitly because I know I'm coming from a little bit of the outside, and I just want to make sure that I'm communicating clearly that I don't expect everybody else to want to get down with these ideas. I know everybody can't touch them and stand next to them, right? But if you give me the space to run with them, I'll make sure that it doesn't touch anybody else.
And that is a valuable service just in that. Thank you, Zach. Any other comments from members of the commission before we close?
Can you tell us where we're going from here?
Yes, do we have our next information for our next meeting, Elizabeth?
Yes, the next meeting is September 11th, a normal meeting here in Chambers.
Okay.
Do you want the following three?
Sure, why not?
We have the October 9th meeting will be in District 3, the South Econ Recreation Center. November 13th will be District 6, the Barnett Park and Recreation Center. And then December 15th, District 1, the West Orange Recreation Center.
Great, thank you so much. Looking forward to getting out in them districts very soon.
Let me ask about those.
Yep, go for it.
Those are just meetings out in the district to hear from the constituents?
I mean, they are our regular, our regular business
No,
meeting.
that's okay, I understand.
Yeah.
But the primary is to listen to the people out in those areas that maybe can't come here.
I hope we have a robust public comment period for those meetings, yes. That is the going to the people and making it easier for them. That's why we're doing
So what's
this.
the plan after that?
In terms of topics, that's not something we have nailed down yet. Some of the things we discussed at the vision session, or our work session this afternoon were some of those things. Even in those district meetings, I would imagine we'll have some sort of agenda programming. I don't think we can count. I would love to fill those rooms with 200 public comments and we got nothing else, but I don't know if we can count on that. And I want to make our time productive. I don't think we've set an agenda in terms of presentations.
Well, to be specific in the sense that the only force that you may have is dealing with the 1-cent sales tax. Okay, if you want to take it off, then all we're doing is just listening to everybody tell us what's going on. That's what we need to do, is to have some indication with respect to that, and there's a time limit in there.
Pull your mic down.
There's a time limit in there to be able to do that, and I'd just like to get an idea of where we are, and I'm sure the county commission is thinking about the same thing.
Sure. I know, like I said, I know they're having their next visioning session in September. I'm not sure if it's before or after our meeting. Brett? 23rd. Okay, so their next visioning session will be after our September 11th meeting. Not much that I can see has changed up until from our last conversation about it. When things change, we have more information. I think we'll have more to talk about. If there's something specific that you want to discuss in regards to it, why do
If the county's going to put a 1 cent sales tax on the resolution, when do they need to make that decision by?
So it's April is the absolute latest because it has to be 6 months before the election.
Okay.
So April would be the ordinance, but most likely the board would want to make a decision, right, with some buffer. But the September 23rd visiting session, just to let you know, I think before I'd mentioned that we were doing market research. That did start. The surveys are underway. So that market research will be one of the main topics of the September 23rd visiting session. So our consultant, which is Great Blue, will be presenting the results of that survey. Okay. And they asked a lot of different questions about different priorities in transportation. So that will be kind of the focus of the 23rd.
You put the parameters out there for me that I was looking for.
Okay.
Okay, with respect to that. Thanks.
Thank you, Brett. You thought you were off the hook, but we dragged you back in.
Well, that was an easy answer. Yeah.
Let's make it a little harder for him next time. Any other questions or comments, Patrick?
Just one question for the district meetings. Is any additional marketing or notification being notified in that district to help people get out in that area?
I think Ms. Torres is going to come up and answer that for us.
Yes, so that's currently something that I'm having a meeting with the consultant to kind of talk about that, see if we'll have any branded materials by that time. What we could do for each district, but there will be funding that will be required, is we could send out a simple mailing. That might be something to consider. We could maybe do some, obviously, social media, things like that. Social media for sure we'll do. Mailings may be expensive because you're talking about an entire district. So if you have any thoughts from your specific districts, maybe there's community centers, libraries, things like that, that you want to forward to me and say, hey, this might be a good place to put some marketing materials or at least some information, some sort of information there. I'd have no problem handling that for you.
Would it not be a good idea when we meet out there in the countryside to be able to relay certain facts that we have learned so those people understand it, as opposed to them getting their stuff off of social media? For example, take Lynx. Would it not be of interest to those people that the average Lynx bus driver has a household income of $24,000 and that Lynx needs to double their budget in order to really deal with this? And then we can talk about it. If we just go out there, people are just going to talk about a lot of stuff. We could talk about Sunrail and what those costs are. We can talk about some other issues. And there must be a more efficient way to be able to get that information out there and indicating what we've been able to learn in many of these meetings.
Sounds like maybe we control some people into some conversations that we'd like them to have by posting memes on social media or through other means. On a more serious note, I think we could, family services, right? Like they tend to have pretty solid outreach and they're in touch with a lot of people. I would imagine like parks could be a good ally in getting the information out. Is it worth it? Like, should we have like just a basic TransMAC flyer, right? That says, hey, TransMAC, fill in title of event, fill in date. Like, do we need to think about these things looking good and appealing to people? Like where does everyone stand on that?
Do we have a website?
It's common.
Well, we have the comptroller has set up a website for TransMAC. So the website that I was discussing earlier as part of our advertising and marketing plan.
Do we have a more simple website?
That's what we're developing, but that's going to take a little time to develop.
Okay.
So yes,
Right.
Absolutely.
Ahmed.
Quick question. On the past outreach efforts to the community, there's been several outreach efforts on transportation through the mayor and the commissioners. What resources were used then, and can we not basically mimic that for these events or for these meetings?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I can reach out to the different district commissioners and ask what they've done in the past. See, to your point, instead of reinventing the wheel, at least for these meetings that are coming up, so we could at least get the word out. But as far as what you want to discuss, I think that's something that the committee will have to provide. These are the kinds of items, whatever it is for your specific district that you want to discuss.
Right. So
Yeah.
so as far as the let's call it the packing the room side of things, getting the message out so that people come. That's basically, Ms. Torres, what I was asking is if there's a vehicle already in place and it's been tried and true. I don't know that I went to all of those meetings, but I went to a lot of those meetings, and the rooms were packed and the conversation was impassioned. So it'd be great to get that type of turnout and people who will come with thoughts and ideas. Coming back to the second point, and I think Mr. Christensen, you were pretty much hitting on that, and Zach as well. It would be good to have, I think you mentioned, Mr. Chair, that we would be running our normal meeting. If we're going out to the district, it seems to me that we're going out with either with ears to listen or a message to deliver, or both, right? And if we are doing that, which I believe that was the purpose of going out to the community, then we've got to establish kind of what is it that what input are we soliciting, and then back to Mr. Christensen's point, to Pat's point, what are we informing the public about?
Yeah, I mean, and that could, well, the second part anyway, could be informed by the district that we're in. Like, the first district we're going to is your district.
Yes.
So you might be in the position to know what's an important topic to cover in that district, or your district commissioner, like, what is a specific topic or issue that we're having in this community that you think would be a good agenda item for us. I think that's where we can leverage our individual personal relationships in our community, but also our relationship with our county commissioner, to kind of try to maybe tailor the message or the information we are trying to deliver to meet the needs of the people who might be coming to that meeting.
So I appreciate that, and I'll tell you from my perspective and the conversations that I've had, whether with the public, the citizenry, or my district commissioner and others, really, again, from my perspective, to inform what I think I'm here to do, I would need to begin to understand, and I think our elected officials would need to begin to understand, where are the public's priorities? What is it? What are we willing to give up so that we can get something else? And where are we willing to invest more and redirect, whether it's a penny out of our pocket, or it's a property tax, or again, I don't want to go down the road of how do we fund it, but to understand the priorities of the public would help our policymakers understand where to direct their attention. So, as Mr. Christensen said, I mean, it's the penny sales tax is the question that the elected officials are going to have to answer as far as a ballot goes, and then the public is going to have to answer as far as voting on that referendum.
What I would suggest, sometimes you go into these areas where the AFDOT's putting a road somewhere, and you go into that room and they got all these charts. And we have one chart over here, big chart, facts about links. And there's certain salient facts. You don't need to do everything, okay? Over here, facts about Sunrail, okay? Facts about Orange County, facts. So, and they could come early, and we'd be out there kibitzing with all of them as they talk about it, and they get into it, and we would see as it comes up. They may say, we don't care about links at all. Well, okay, that'd be nice to know. But that way, I doubt that a lot of them are going to do a study maybe before they come. Some will.
Well, I think that's right, Pat. What you're speaking to, I think this is where our kind of responsibility comes in. Is that it's our responsibility to figure out how to cultivate that conversation, right? Like, what preparations do we make before the meeting so that we're prepared to have this conversation, to hear the input from people? And then what preparations do we make at the meeting so that the meeting is designed to be optimized to take that input in, right? To make it like you're saying, that's a great idea to put up informational charts so that as people are coming in, the first visual cue is, here's information for you to digest that is insight on all these things that affect you, right?
Well, I don't know if our charge is to go out into the hinterlands and convert all the heathens out there. I think.
I'm not talking about
our charge may have been
converting.
to look at how Orange County funds roads, how they used to fund roads, and what our recommendations are. But I think in the context of this, it is really important, because I think there's a certain sense out there that people like us more than they like the county commission. But in regard to this, because we don't have any other kind of issues and we're not elected. But I would say if we could go out there and give them the information just like that and spend hours with them and walk around and talk with them, you know, and say, okay, what do you guys learn about links? Or what's this with links here? And we could tell them, or what about Sunrail? How come you're not going to raise the gas tax and pay for all this? Those are, then people can tell us, you know, where they want to go here. Because if anybody thinks that we don't have a transportation problem in this county, I mean, they're just not living in the real life. I mean, some people may not have a transportation problem that stay where they are all the time and they're only a block from the post office, but most people have the normal people here that have a family and children that have to get up every morning and go to work and drive home and drive back. Those are the kind of people that really don't care about a lot of stuff other than what's in their total area of what they do every day with their children and family and all that type of stuff.
So ideally, I don't think anyone's going to tell us they don't have a transportation problem.
Probably not.
The three of those people that live in Orange County probably won't show up to that meeting. So, so I agree with you. But you know, taking a page out of Ms. Bush's playbook here, it would be great to either, you know, have the boards, but have a simple presentation that really boils it down to what is the budget, how many miles of road do we have out there, how much does it cost to deliver the infrastructure that we need to deliver, to maintain the infrastructure that we have. Just give how much does it cost to run the buses, to run them even longer and on better headways. And so to start to contextualize this for the public, and then ask for what would you do less of to get more of, or if you want it all, how do we get there? You know.
So let me ask you a question, because I think you two maybe are asking for the same things. I'm starting to maybe getting an understanding of what you're driving at, so let me see if I'm on the right track here. Are you suggesting, like, I do not mean this facetiously, like almost a summary of the 6 months of meetings we have up to this point in terms of budget, in terms of links, in terms of Sunrail? So kind of just repackaging all that into a single night presentation of like
with as few words as possible, as many pictures as possible.
Right, that's what I mean, like
one page,
a condensation,
Big chart, big chart.
condensing all that material we've gone through over the past 6 months into one single, easily digestible, high-level presentation for the people in attendance.
Really big on charts.
With charts.
To engender the conversation,
Right.
Exactly. To engender the conversation, and look, as a practitioner, this is the one thing that I find when I'm engaging in the community, whether it's in a community meeting or a public hearing or whatever it may be. There is a lack of appreciation for how immense this problem is. We've even seen it on this board, right? Everyone knows the solutions. Just fix this problem, my life will be better. The issue is you fix that problem, there's 2,000 other problems waiting right behind it, right? So what I believe the biggest bang for our buck is that summary of here's the immensity, or here's the issue, right? Now, we don't even have to say this is how big it is, but here's the issue. This is our budget. This is what it costs to deliver. This is what it costs to deliver these services. And we're here grappling with doing the most that we can do with what we have And we're asking you, the public, how much more of this do you want? And help us prioritize how we get there, right? That's the kind of feedback that we need, that our elected officials need, to know and start to get a feel for, is the public ready, or is the public interested in certain solutions enough to pay for them, right? Back to pets, let's stop beating around the bush. We need money to solve our problems, right? So is the public ready to pay for the money that we need to solve our problems?
Okay. Yeah, I think I see the value in what you're saying. Jose.
Yeah, labor will be probably, 60% of the labor force here in Orange County. If we take 100,000 people who work in the iDrive area, those in Disney, Epic Universe, all the hotels, and I'm talking to them, because I'm part of the labor movement, and they're telling me their number one issue is the combination of housing and transportation. So I have access to all the union members in Orange County. So Lauren, there should be no problem of me conveying the message to all of them, so they have direct access to them through either their websites and also by texting out, mail out. We could be 100,000 people there. So I'm kind of concerned because Seminole County 2 days ago, they raised their taxes. And they're a Republican county. And pretty much nobody showed up to their meeting. They raised all their taxes. And Brett, you can give us an update on that. But I'm just kind of concerned because Orange County being kind of a Democrat progressive county, I'm hearing that we don't want to raise taxes. And Seminole County being the more affluent one, being Republican one, they actually say, yeah, go ahead, because they want to maintain the quality of life. I just don't want to sell my labor movement short by telling them you cannot realize the difference between how much it's going to impact you paying $300 more per year in a higher sales tax when you can save thousands of dollars by having more mass transit and better traffic system. I don't want to sell them short. So I understand that may be an opinion by some elected officials that are running out there that they don't want to bring the issues of raising sales tax because it may impact their campaign. But I think we should not be telling the labor movement, we don't trust you in making a decision. We should present the facts, and if they want to vote for it, let them do it. But I just want to short sell the labor movement, and I think they'll be for it. But I'm just impactful that Seminole County, they raised their taxes, and they made the decision to go ahead and pretty much to maintain the quality of life, and they're a Republican county. So how they did it, they did it.
Zach.
I think as long as we plan these meetings with enough advance notice and we get them to the commissioners so that the commissioners can get them on their email newsletters or whatever the other relevant county organizations are, I think if we start with these easy wins, right, that each one brings out 10, 5, 20 people, that will be more than enough people for us to interface with to get good information. I think the thing that is going to behoove us the best is to have a plan going into this and to not go into this without having conversations in place that we're trying to push and understanding like, hey, what are our 3 talking points as a commission? Because if we can't all get straight on that, we're not going to get anywhere together. And as much as we're here to, I get you, Pat, of like the prioritizing the quote unquote normal person's input is how you get to like the zero line on the tax stuff. That's not our only charge. And if we are charged with, let me finish before you interrupt me, please. If we are charged with finding innovation and doing new things, then we have to be able to walk both those lines at the same time. We have to be able to say that we're not out here to sell the tax one way or another. We are out here to get the information out about it. And we also have to be able at the same time to say we're going to do stuff that hasn't been done before.
Rod.
It's going back to the aspect of getting the word out. And I can't speak for all commissioners, but Commissioner Moore, I've attended 2 of her meetings since the first of the year. She had 60 to 100 people there, which shocked me, is the number of people that going. So starting with the commissioner, but I think we can look at, you turn on the news every day, they're talking about traffic on 4, traffic here, traffic there. Can't media help us with say, hey, look, those of you interested in traffic, you might want to attend this meeting. Churches, senior centers, schools, kids, drivers getting their kids to and from school every day is a problem. try to reach out as much as we can, and then hopefully the venue will be big enough to support the people that come. But starting with the commissioner, I don't know what the other commissioner meetings are, whether they have the turnout that she does, or they happen to be the subject matter. I can't speak to that. All I can speak is I was shocked that many people come into a meeting.
Sounds like we might need some kind of a subcommittee here, right? Of like, we have more organizational stuff than we can accomplish right now. I would be more than willing, like, I do graphic design, I do all these things. I could, if it's within the realms of what's acceptable, I could take a pass at making like a basic mail-out flyer that we can do for all these things.
Well, we do have, the consultant is working on.
Okay,
on
so the
promotional
consultant's
materials.
doing that, but then
Yeah.
I want to make sure that when we leave here, we're in a position to put a plan in place for what we're going to do for these meetings. So if we have one more meeting before we start and get out into the district, then that means when we walk out of that meeting, we gotta be finalized on whatever that plan is.
I agree.
So I just want to make sure that we're all in a place that we're going to be able to get there by the next meeting, because if not, then we got to talk about what we're going to do in the interim.
Yeah. I agree. Okay.
Just to the meetings, I kind of think my thinking is it should default to whoever's district that is to kind of lead and give perspective of like, hey, this is how we should kick it off. We're like in my district, it's a lot of growth. So it would be, all right, here's the projects in place, here's the pipeline, here's the timeline, as well as here's the budget and so on, to kind of curb the questions before they come up of like, this is already aware, we're working on it. What are the other things that you're thinking about to kind of get feedback that we haven't discussed yet?
Right.
So I think maybe each district should fall to that person of kind of build that and then discuss it before the next meeting potentially.
Yeah, I agree. That's why we're here representing our district and our district commissioner. So I think those relationships are important. Okay. Anything else? All right. It was great seeing you guys for about 5 hours today. Let's do it again sometime. All right. We're adjourned.